everyone, and welcome to the second installment of MK's Audiobook Club. Hope you joined us this month. We have been listening to and are going to discuss My Brother's Voice, narrated by the very, very talented Maxwell Glick. Not any of you really gave me any thoughts for this edition of the book club, so I'm just going to tell you about my thoughts, and you can carry on the discussion in the comments below. I hope that you all listen to the book. Obviously, it's a story about a Holocaust survivor and his experience with that, so it was very different in tone from The Secret Diary of Lizzie Bennet, and pretty intense to get through at times, but I had asked Max which of his books he thought we should do, because he's done a lot of audiobooks, and he said this one because of the nature of the story and how dark it was and how difficult it was. It's a real story. It's a real terrible, terrible thing that happened to this man, and I think he did an incredible job with that in mind. But we'll talk more about Max later. What to say about the story? I mean, I just couldn't believe it at every turn how Pishta managed to continue surviving and was so clever and bright, and always was able to get himself out of scrapes. Not that he didn't get into scrapes, because I can't believe the amount of times that he was beaten. But that I don't know, his story was just so incredible, and I found myself just obviously rooting for him and really enjoying listening to him retell this terrible, terrible thing. And I also think it was important for us to listen to, because like he says in the book, you need to learn from history, or history will repeat itself. I still can't believe that this is something that the world experienced less than 100 years ago. I can't believe that it happened, and yet it did, and thank God that we have people like Stephen Nasser who survived it and can tell us, what they went through. It was such an intense story, and I felt so deeply for all the characters, and I mean, I don't know how you can't really in that situation. I just really enjoyed his narration. I keep saying enjoyed. Obviously it wasn't like a pleasant experience, but as far as going on a journey with him went, he did a wonderful job of relaying, all the parts of his journey. I cried a lot. I mostly listened to it on the plane or in the car, and I found myself in tears many, many times. I just couldn't believe how dark some of it was, and how when I thought it couldn't get worse, it did. And Max had warned me that it was going to be difficult to stomach, and he was right. It was truly, truly harrowing. But that said, you just couldn't help but root for Pishta, and one of the main things that I found myself at the end of the book, I was so invested in his relationship with Vera, and I got really sad that they never were able to be together. I got so sad. I so wanted Pishta to have, some wonderful thing happen to him, because he had been through so much. Hi, Rosie. I wanted Pishta to have a thing that was good for him after all he had been through, and something that, I don't know, I just wanted him to have some happiness in his life, which he certainly did, and his resilience was just unbelievable with how positive he managed to stay through all of it. And I remember him at one point saying something like, I had bitterness in my heart for these people who had done that to me, but I was trying to not let myself have that. And I was just like, yeah, of course you do. How could you not in that situation? His optimism and his determination, he was just such an incredible person. I'm sure he did have happiness in his life, but I just so wanted that. I was so excited for him to have Vera, and then that didn't happen either. It was just time after time after time, he just lived through such difficult things and continued to, follow his heart and trust what he had to do. And I thought it was truly remarkable, and I just want to thank Max for bringing this story to our attention, because it is something that we need to remember and learn about and consider. Now, I would like to talk a bit about Max's performance, which I thought, again, was fantastic. I thought it was very interesting comparing how he did the voices of the different characters versus how Ashley did it in The Secret Diary. It was a very different experience. Obviously, with The Secret Diary, she was having to do characters that you know and love, so she was imitating them, and in this case, he was not. He was just making up the voices for each of the characters. It seemed to me, I may be wrong about this, but it seemed to me that Max was placing less emphasis on making sure that every voice was completely different from each other, but that he just kind of took the feeling of the character or the general mood of the character to put into his inflection, and I actually was so surprised at how well done his female voices were. Like, I was listening to him and I was hearing a girl. Like, I never, there were times where I was like, oh yeah, this is Max, this is my friend, who is a dude, doing such a great female voice without making it sound like overly, ridiculous or whatever. It was very smooth, and all his transitions between characters were very smooth, and showing characters with different levels of authority and different ages and different genders. Max is a very good storyteller, and I thought he did a wonderful job of, like, I don't know, I think it's a delicate balance when you acting or doing audiobooks, which of course I've never done, but I can see how this would come into play. You know, if you're doing really deep, intense material, sometimes you have to not get too bogged down in it. You kind of have to, like, skim the surface of it, because it's already so dark as it is. Like, you don't need to add too much more to it, and I thought he did a really wonderful job of that, because Max has a very pleasant voice and is a very kind of upbeat, optimistic person, and that was still who he was, even as telling the story, this terrible, terrible thing, but that didn't change how terrible the story was. Like, he relayed everything in a way that was, truly heartbreaking, but managed, which I think was exactly what he needed to do in terms of, like, playing the Pishta character. Like, he managed to keep kind of some light in it, to find some like buoyancy in these things that were awful, and that clearly was what Pishta was able to do in real life, and to continue to look for the good and humanity and the strength in himself, and that was what was able to help him survive, and I thought Max did an incredible job with that. He was Pishta to me, so when at the end of the book the interview came on with the actual Stephen Nasser, I was like, you're not him! Which of course he was much older and had an accent, and I just was like, no, Max is Pishta, that's not you, but of course it is. And Max said that he got to meet Stephen Nasser, which is really incredible. I would be so nervous to be doing what Max did in this instance of, like, telling someone's very personal story on a platform to millions. I would love to hear what you thought of the book, who your favorite characters were, if you thought that Max did a great job bringing Pishta to life, and what in particular that he did that. Did you find it hard to get through? Did you enjoy all the different voices that he did? Did you enjoy his reading? What parts did you find the most incredible? Did you cry as much as I did? Thank you so much for joining me. Next month, we will be carrying on the tradition of doing a book read by a Lizzie Bennet Diaries actor, and we will be listening to House of Secrets by Chris Columbus and narrated by Daniel Vincent Gord. I listened to the snippet of it on audible.com, and it sounds like he does a lot of cool, crazy voices as well, so I'll be looking forward to that. Please join me. As always, you can use the hashtag MKAudiobookClub and get on audibletrial.com/mksmiles, that's EMKAYSMILES, to download a free 30-day trial and get a free audiobook so you can listen to House of Secrets for free, or check out your local library. Thank you so much for joining me, for participating. You're the best, and I'll see you next month. I wanted him to have that, like, thing that went right for him, and obviously, like... Rosie just jumped from the couch on the table and slid.